It's a composite of all the towns in the state, is what it is.
In the nation.
That's deep.
Well, anyway, that's that. Then we've got the site plan review checklist. So, all right, we've got 28. Let's take a look at site plan review checklist.
So we're gonna leave it on there, or we're gonna just get rid of it?
Get rid of it. But we're not gonna do anything with it right here tonight. That was my suggestion.
Okay.
I mean, we're getting familiar with this, because I know nobody's done any homework on it, and I don't blame anybody for doing it, and I haven't done any homework on it. So we're doing some homework here.
That's the way I thought.
Now we're all on the page when we discuss it again.
Yeah.
We know exactly what we're talking about. So maybe somebody come up with a good reason that it should be there. I doubt it, but. Go back to vicinity sketch and zoning
But we don't
district.
need a locus on the site plan.
But there's no locus on the site plan. I know. Okay, number 6 is one that there was an issue with during the Moose Mountain site plan review. And that was the portion of it. The shape, size, height, location, use of existing and proposed structures located on the site, that's fine. And within 200 feet of the site, which forced the applicant to hire a professional to go out, and there were a dozen houses there, and come up with an accurate assessment, whether it's a survey or whatever, describing the size, shape, height, and it has to be done professionally, or who would know if it's accurate, of all the structures within 200 feet of the site. And that's all the houses across the road. Well, that's kind of
Now,
useless.
I could see where you got this from. This would be something that would be pertinent in a town that's highly developed
With small lots.
with small lots.
Yep.
And even I even think Rochester would think twice about this, but maybe Portsmouth, the center of town in Portsmouth would consider something like that. If you were going to develop a tract of land in the middle of town, you want to know what the rest of the town is around it.
Right.
So then that's important for that situation, but for our situation, I think it's just redundant.
Well, it forces the applicant to spend a pile of money on something that is,
Right.
I guess what we would think would be looking more at watershed, highly densely populated area.
on number 6, I would put the period after site
And then delete the rest.
and delete the rest.
I agree.
So you're gonna do the same with number 7?
Well, that's not so difficult. You're not asking somebody to hire an architect. I mean, that may be necessary in terms of traffic. I mean, it may be. And to have them name the proposed roads within 200 feet of the site is not asking, it's not a hardship. We're not asking the applicant to spend a lot of money. In fact, the applicant from the town map can determine the names and the widths of the road within 200 feet of the site, and wouldn't need a surveyor to ascertain that. So I don't think that's being unreasonable, and we might need, we already have the information anyway, so maybe it is redundant. But in the event we have to, like, we might have to do a traffic, this is a little old Brookfield and probably never would. But we talked about it, if Bordeaux were to turn that into a teeming, thriving business with weddings every night of the week, we might have a traffic situation on that road, and if he were making a lot of money, then it would be something that he would become responsible for to maintain the road and bring it up to the standards required. And that's the way it works in communities. I mean, the residents of that road shouldn't be responsible for maintaining it for the express reason that there's a business on it that we've allowed to come into being that never was there before. So I don't know that that's something we should get rid of, you know. It's on the, it also gives somebody on the planning board 10 years from now, when the thing has changed its nature, whether through new ownership or whatever, a description of what was going on at the time that we approved this. The road was this wide, and that was the traffic at the time, et cetera. They can look at it and say, well, that's not what it is now, or what's required now. So I wouldn't, I don't know that I would move that, but anybody else? I don't want to talk all this.
I think you can come off.
Huh?
I don't think it's necessary.
So this is.
Pardon me?
I don't think it's necessary.
Okay, well, make a note. We're not going to make that decision tonight. Everybody gets to think about it.
What was this one?
A lot of this is,
That's from a big city,
from a big
exactly.
city.
Do we have any sidewalks in
Not yet.
the town?
If we sign on, we could get some, because they'll probably be donated.
That's what we need.
There's not an inch of a sidewalk in here anywhere that I
That
know
should
of. We have
not-
walking trails.
It should not be on here, then. At least not a reference to sidewalk.
Well, that eliminates pedestrian traffic. And indication travel for both pedestrian and vehicular traffic. I think that has to do with right-of-ways, one-way streets, things like that.
Interior development roads
Yeah,
that may have sidewalks.
Do we have any one-way streets?
We have one-way sections. Holly,
Ollie, that's right.
the bridge too. Of course, that's a walkway.
What bridge?
one bridge.
You-
Was it gone now?
You can't drive over it.
You
No,
can't
it's
drive over that
a,
bridge.
it's a walkway.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
But
just
it's-
a walking bridge now.
It's a walking bridge now, no more driving. That's right, we didn't do the box
I'd have to walk all the
bridge.
way around to get back.
Yeah.
Well, it's one way at a time. Anyway, look,
5 feet wide, 2 feet wide.
this is a location of these proposed sidewalks and driveways for both pedestrian and vehicular traffic within the site. You know, here we are back in Little Brookfield. What's anybody going to propose to do that's going to require something like that?
200 lot subdivision.
Yeah. You know, that's the kind of thing that,
That's what everybody used to throw at us when we were in Wakefield.
Where?
We're gonna get they just had a big subdivision in Dover and they're coming north.
you know,
Eventually, they're gonna have to come north.
Oh, yeah. 'Cause Dover-
Because
well,
there's gonna be nothing left to build down south.
when we get the Fair Housing Act in place, yeah, but, see, you know how I see this thing? Yeah, it doesn't fit the model here, but we've got the right to waive any of this as a planning board for anybody, so we can leave it there and it doesn't do any damage.
And if there's no sidewalks,
You have to be
no-
careful that you don't set a precedence. If you start waiving it for one, you have to be able to justify why you waived it for one and not another. So that becomes a very slippery slope when you start waiving things out of a document or regulation.
Well, the last slippery slope got us into a lawsuit, but when we waived something, if you remember, but this is the kind of thing where the guy's not gonna have any sidewalks. It's a site plan. We're gonna waive number 8, that's all. If he's gonna have sidewalks, we can ask him, show us where your sidewalks are gonna be. If he's gonna develop, like Moose Mountain, he may put 3 or 4 buildings
Right,
up.
because the site plan is gonna play into new proposed developments.
Yeah.
Or a change of use for an existing.
Okay.
Could be.
You gotta remember though, that there's a difference between a sidewalk and a walk path or a walkway. I can put concrete sidewalks all over my yard if I want to. That is not a regulation that Brookfield needs to have. Brookfield doesn't have sidewalks. Sidewalks are a public walkway that go along the streets. Anything that is on a private property is a pathway or a
But-
walkway, not a sidewalk.
But if the 200 lot subdivision gets put to this board, and his roads are proposing sidewalks, and his intentions are when it's done, that he wants the town to take it over, then the town has an interest in those sidewalks.
Exactly, if it's gonna revert to the town's maintenance.
But we're talking about box stores again, but
I
you're right.
understand, but that's why it's in there.
Yeah, well, it's in there for Manchester, Nashua, Concord, Rochester.
Oh, I'm not saying I agree with it, I'm just saying that's the
Yeah,
logic.
I understand why it's there. Do we want to leave it there? I'm not saying let's make a decision on any of this stuff tonight. These are just things, we're going to work on this. Everybody think about it. We'll make decisions on this. It isn't going to take long, but we don't have to snap the decision on it this moment.
I just wanted to.
They're valid
think
points,
about
and we need to-
sidewalks versus walkways.
We can just write and/or,
Think about it.
and it's in, and you don't have to waive it. And again, the pedestrian vehicle traffic and/or.
I think most subdivisions will find it, they'll be very hard pressed to get the town to accept any new roads anyway.
We already have private roads in town.
We do have private roads,
Yep.
Yeah.
and they're maintained by the builder or subdivision, or the association.
Yeah. So that's already set for us.
The town doesn't have to accept new roads.
Trying to get rid of.
No,
some
but
of what we
if
got.
they force the person to build it to state spec, and they don't accept the road, they are opening themselves up to a prospective lawsuit.
Any new roads have to be built to state spec. You can't build a road.
You can build a private road not to state spec.
Not if public travels on it.
A private road.
If the public travels on that road, it has to be built to state specs. If it is your own personal driveway, and you're the only one that's going to be driving over,
Is that an RSA that if it's a private road? I don't think so. I don't know that one.
That's a Brookfield requirement.
It's a Brookfield requirement, but it's, okay. Brookfield requires, then if it's a Brookfield requirement that anybody build a road to state spec,
Brookfield's requirement is if you want a building permit on that road, it needs to be built to.
this was Bob Leonard, 16 years ago, with the subdivision, Roberts Road. The town would not take the road over, and Bob spent $380,000 building that road to state spec, above and beyond what he could have put that road in for. And his subsequent hardship was that he lost all the lots in there because no bank would, it was back during the 93, 94 depression, recession, whatever that business was. The subsequent thing that happened to Bob was that he lost all those lots in there because no bank during that particular financial crisis, the savings loan crisis, would not underwrite the sale of those lots for anyone. So if you didn't have cash, you couldn't buy the lot, and that's the way it was. And Bob lost his shirt and went broke on it. He had to file personal bankruptcy. Because the town, and they finally accepted it. And they finally accepted it at the town meeting because I stood up and said, I'm going to tell you what. If it had been me, and this was my subdivision, and you made me spend $400,000, I'd own half this town by now, and I would have. The town has no business making somebody build a road to state spec and then saying, we're not going to accept it. They may create a law like that. That doesn't mean it's going to hold up in any court of law in this country. So the town better watch out. Now, Bob, after saying that, and I was 100% correct, because in Connecticut, I don't know about New Hampshire and how the courts lean, but I know if anybody in Connecticut had built that road and the town had forced them and then refused to accept it as a town road, there would have been a massive lawsuit against the town, and the outcome would have been determined by the court system 5 years later, and it would have cost the town as much or more than it would have cost them to plow this.
The reason behind it all is because if it goes more than one house on that road, the town will have to accept that road if enough people in town vote for it, regardless of how it was built. So the town, in
That's true.
turn, says, if you're gonna have more than one house on this road, you build it to town specs so that when it's done, just like Tumble Down Deck.
Yep, exactly.
Enough people came to town meeting and voted, they put a warrant article on to accept that for town maintenance,
And they,
regardless of the condition, we all know how it was out there.
yep,
And enough people voted for it, and instantly it became town, it went from a class 6 to a class 5.
And the town has poured hundreds of thousands of dollars into that road to get it up to its current condition today.
I'm not advocating that we take over class 6 roads and turn them into class 5 roads. That's not what I'm saying here.
No, but I'm saying any class 6 road
Well, that
in
was
this
a class
town
5 to
can
summer camp,
become
right?
5.
If at the town meeting, everybody in
Within
town
hours.
votes it such, that is the case. But the town hasn't forced anybody to do anything to that road. My point is, if the town's gonna make someone spend $500,000 today to take a loop of a road and bring it up to state spec,
We just did.
yeah, with what's his name?
Yeah, that's
And
right.
the town hasn't accepted it.
They haven't asked for this.
They haven't applied for it. Because that's the reason the town hasn't accepted. But all I'm saying is if the town forces them to do this, then there are ramifications to that. And this is the legislative body that creates the ramifications. So I'm saying that that this should go by Laura Spector at some point. I'm not saying spend money, but
We did take it by Laura Spector.
when?
The original, when we put it in there originally,
She wasn't the town attorney, took it by what's his name?
by Mitchell Bates.
Mitchell.
Yeah,
Bates.
Same.
Tim
same-
Bates.
Yeah, Tim Bates. It's Mitchell and Bates. It's the same organization. Tim Bates just retired. It's still Mitchell.
No, I know, but
Okay.
did Tim say that the town did not have to accept the road?
The town doesn't have to vote to accept any roads.
I-
But it's town vote.
Right, I understand that. But the selectmen say, the selectmen do not recommend this. And everybody goes in and they write down no. Because the selectmen do not represent this, subject to political influence is the point. There are legal,
But there are legal
There's
ramifications.
ramifications no matter what
No matter
happens.
what you do,
That's
because
right.
I understand, but some of them cost people a lot of money, including towns, and some of them don't. I don't know, it's just something that's, I'm gonna investigate that further, because I know that meeting, they voted to accept Bob's Road as a town road at that meeting, after they bankrupted the guy. Absolutely ridiculous. Now it's a town road. And they had to bankrupt the guy to get to that position? I think that's stupid. You know, I'm sorry. And I don't think the town should be part and parcel to those kind of actions. And this is where they emanate, from here. Either we're gonna make them do it and accept the road, or don't make them do it. And never accept the road. That could be written into legislation too.
no, because the current legislation says that if the majority of the townspeople vote for it,
The state RSA.
then it becomes a town road.
But if it's a class, okay, I mean, there are,
Regardless of the class.
yeah, but there still are ramifications. I know that there are things to this that, you know, in a little town like this, if we're going to make someone build a road to state spec, we have to be willing. We don't have to approve the site plan either. Somebody puts a
But you
fire.
have to give them a guideline of what you're looking for
Yeah.
when they build the road. And that's what we did in the subdivision regulations when we put them in, is on page 18 and 19 and 20 is define roads
Yep.
and our minimum requirements, minimum grades, minimum,
I'm familiar with it,
so, and that's what it is.
but a guideline and law are two different things. A guideline is, this is what we'd like you to do, and this is what you must do. Well, anyway, that's
Next
just
item.
other
That's
things.
what zoning ordinances are. you must do this, you must abide by.
Agreed, and I think that there should be ramifications, that if we're going to force that, it's something we need to discuss further, and I'm gonna do a little research on
I
it.
just got to make one comment on
Yeah.
this. Keep depending on how you phrase must do for the contractor or developer, or what the developer must do or what the town requires a developer to do to protect potential buyers of those lots. Such as you put in a subdivision, let's say there's 10 lots. You build the road according to the minimum town specs before you can sell a lot. That protects the buyer of that lot.
That's the way it's worded.
So he
That's the way
has
it's worded.
access to his lot on a safe road. And that's basically common knowledge in the two towns that I've dealt with over the years.
And it also says, when the town says build it to this spec, it says that if you build it to this spec, you may get denied acceptance, but it won't be because of the structure of the road.
Right.
And generally, the way that all works is most are, in the wording of the documentation is, they don't even ask for the town to come in until 50% of the lots are developed.
Right.
Well, that may be.
And that protects the town from somebody blasting in a huge development with lots of road, and they sell one lot, and then they get strapped financially, they have the town take it over, and we're plowing all these roads for one house.
No, I understand the problems, and most of it relates to larger communities. I mean, there isn't that much developable land in this town, given what's in current use, what's in conservation, and what's buildable. There's just not that many places. I mean, we're never going to be subject to a 200-house development.
This isn't
Given
going to be a 20,000 or above town ever.
No, given the economic conditions and the lay of the land, the topography, I don't think we're going there. To those extremes. I mean, you know what I mean. So,
It's time
anyway, just something, let's move on. Yeah.
Let's move on.
Wastewater, existing pro storm. Are you leaving?
Yeah.
I do want to talk to you. I'm sorry. Excuse me for a minute, folks.
Do you want to
Not
take a
now.
5-minute recess?
Yeah, would you all mind if we take a 5-minute recess? Greg is a friend of mine, and I would love to, can we take a 5-minute recess
You're the
before he
chair.
leaves? I mean, with all you folks, yeah, but I don't want any
5-minute
tomatoes. We're gonna take a 5-minute recess.
Why, you're Italian tomato with that?
Yeah, take 5 minutes.
Tomato paste, tomato sauce.
Yeah, we don't have to
Next
go,
time.
yeah, we don't have to go too much further.
We're cruising, we banged off,
You know what I
old
mean?
business, we banged off 2 or 3.
So it's practicality.
I've never seen the planning board do that.
We're getting there. I mean, this,
We're moving better.
How did you give this to me?
okay, where were we? We're back in business.
Good. Yep, all looks good. Let's mull it over, talk about it next week.
We're gonna get out of here soon.
Yeah, this was all refined after the last time it was used. I remember it was a lot bigger than this.
Well, it should have a date on it, shouldn't it?
We can waive things that are not pertinent. For instance, if he wants to do a site plan review for, other than a conditional use permit, he may have to come back, or somebody, we're talking about Moose Mountain, let's face it, because it's really got nothing to do with the subdivision, that's a separate entity. So we're basically talking about the rec zone here. And if he needs another site plan review, a lot of these things may be waivable simply because he's already done them and we don't need the information.
But understand, and again, understand, remember what this town went through,
Yeah,
the first site plan review up there, because it was in the zoning or in that site plan review regulation, it was required. And if you waive it, and the neighbors don't like the fact that you waive that requirement, you're open to another lawsuit. So if it's removed, if you don't like that, or if it's not necessary, if you remove it from that regulation,
I'm not removing anything.
no, I'm just saying, if it was removed, if it doesn't make sense, then get rid of it. It doesn't belong there. If it does make sense, leave it. But once the site plan review is requested, then everything within that regulation has to go there unless there is a bona fide justifiable reason, you can waive it.
Well, that's what I'm referring to, bona fide justified reasons. In other words, soil survey and wetlands data. You may have already submitted that for the original site plan review, and he did, and Fraggle Rock did the whole thing, and if he's up on top of the mountain building some building that has absolutely nothing to do with the wetlands, we have a recent soil survey and wetlands data, because it is done, it is valid, it's not required, we could waive that, because we already have it on file. That's my point.
And the argument will be that grounds change and it needs to be resubmitted.
Yeah, I don't know that that's a valid argument.
I'm just
But-
playing devil's advocate.
Mr. Chairman? No, we've got a choice of either refining all of these and removing the waive column if waiving is gonna get us in trouble,
You know, you have
or
to.
leave the waive column and leave these intact. And we can waive things on a need-by-need basis. I don't see anything wrong with that. If it's something sensible that needs to be waived, we waive it. We're not gonna get sued, we don't have to worry about that bullshit. Let's just either keep the waive column in there and refine these points, or take the waive column out and leave them all as is. And just make everyone do all this, jump through all these fire hoops.
Well, now everybody's got this stuff in their head. We'll do it next meeting, and we'll talk about any changes we're gonna make to this. You've made a suggestion. I don't think we should move to do any of this stuff at this meeting.
I agree.
I think that just going through this, there's only a few things here I think that need changing. And I think they need it. That's all I was interested in doing.
We got more homework.
Yeah.
I move that we continue the site plan review checklist next meeting.
Second.
Thank you for correcting that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We work on it next meeting. Now, let's see. Member comments, new business. Anybody got any new business?
Yeah, I just want to bring up new business from the last meeting.
Yep.
In regards to, Rob Collins submitted about a yard sale on Route 109. There was some discussion as to whether yard sales should be designated in the zoning ordinance. I did not attend that meeting, unfortunately, so could somebody just refresh my memory of what was said?
Well,
Rob brought up that there was discussion about complaints for the parking alongside the road for that yard sale on 109.
there was one complainant, and it's the same person that complains every time. And Rob, in his usual legal, semi-quasi-legal thing, suggested that maybe the town should possibly, he wasn't adamant about it, put something in there that permits yard sales or doesn't permit yard sales. But that's about the extent of it. In other words, he was saying, well, if you're gonna allow yard sales, because we have permissive or prohibitive zoning, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and.
But are yard sales covered under cottage and cottage industries and home-based businesses?
It's a yard sale.
I'm not gonna go, I'm not gonna take the board into that discussion, because I don't
If someone
feel,
has a problem with traffic because of an event that's going on someplace, there's a police department they should call, not a planning board.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be talking about it. It's a yard sale.
The police department are notified of the yard sales and have given him guidelines of what he needs to do to keep the roads clear.
Right.
And they drive by and check on him all the time.
And you can tell that is well organized, and there are plenty of signs out there.
We discussed the actual.
And it seems everybody that goes there knows the drill.
if he had a business every week that he had a yard sale all summer long, then he's got a cottage industry.
And then he would have to be off-road parking.
He'd have to do something.
Right.
Right, but it's just a yard sale, one-shot deal.
The issue the citizen had was that it was a eyesore to see that as you approach and go through
Well,
road.
that's a different issue.